Hi guys, it is time for my February wrap-up. I know this is not a ton of books that you are looking at, but this is the most I've ever read in February, I think, honestly. Most of my reading happens in the summertime, and that's how this account actually really took off. But guess what? I read 4 books in February. This is momentous, okay? So let's get into reviewing them and just talking about all of these books. I also finished one technically today, which is March 1st that I'm filming this and uploading this most likely. That's my goal. But I read Gentle and Lowly, and I was gonna include it in February because it's March 1st and I just finished it and I read it all throughout February. I'm still debating if I should do it because I literally finished the last chapter and the epilogue this morning. I'm just gonna add it in here because I read it in February, you know? Okay, feel free to be upset with me that I added in Gentle and Lowly, but I just feel like it makes sense because I did read this book in February and I literally finished it this morning. So it would be weird to add it into my March TBR when I didn't read it in March. That makes sense? Feel free to be mad about that choice, but I'm standing with it. I am also going to share with you why am I out of breath? I am also going to be sharing with you what I read in my Bible in this month of February, and I read the book of Hebrews, so I'm going to talk about it. I'm not going to rate it, if that makes sense, because I love the whole Bible, but I will talk about this book specifically and what I got from it, so stay tuned for that. But let's get into the reviews. Okay, so something new that I want to add into how I review my books, and I think I added it in my last review, is this reading journal that my friend got me because it really helps me, 1, stay organized, and 2, I have all my notes in here for all the books that I read. So if you don't know, this is what it looks like on the inside. That is how the rating and all those things work. But let's go to the beginning. I did review Cinder, which I read, the first book of this month. I did review Cinder at my last video in my reading vlog, so I'm not going to go too in-depth on like the summary or anything like this. So if you want to know the summary of this book, go there, but I will just share my rating with you here. And the same goes for Better Than the Movies. I won't be sharing a summary of the book, but I will be giving you my rating because I did summarize and read and all that in my last video. So I'll have that linked for you down below. My overall rating for Cinder was a 4 stars. There's no spice in this book. It was so well written. It was very interesting. This one did take me a little while to read, but I enjoyed it a lot and it was really good. I think I just didn't have a lot of time, but I started prioritizing more time after this book for reading, so that's why I got more books done. But anyways, yeah, overall 4 stars. The plot was 4 stars. I liked the storyline of it. The characters were really cool, and I loved how there was like a little robot sidekick for Cinder, which is basically a cyborg Cinderella. And I know it sounds weird, but don't hate it till you read it because it is so good. So anyways, yeah, that's my notes on Cinder. So as you can see, I have lots of notes on Better Than the Movies because I had a lot to say. I even added a little sticker because so far this has been my favorite book that I have read this year. And I know it's only February, but this one will be very hard to top because it just left me with such a happy feeling. So, you know, my overall rating for Better Than the Movies was 5 stars. This one, I don't know necessarily how other YouTubers rate the whole, like, spice rating. I would give a 1 out of 5, which is just when there's kissing at all. So this one I'd probably leave it at a 1 because there is kissing. Maybe like, I don't know how to like rate it properly for everybody to get what I mean, but there's 2 kiss scenes in the total and it's towards the ending. So the book has wonderful banter and is just so cute, and I love Liz and Wes in this book. I even love some of the other characters that are in the story that aren't like your main characters, but I still absolutely love and adore them, and I think that they brought another interesting part into the story that would have lacked if they weren't in the story, you know? But the main characters, Liz and Wes, really pull through the whole entire thing. Also, the fake dating trope, love it. I don't think I've ever read a book with fake dating before, so I really liked it for the first time. Overall, the characters, I would give them like a 4.5. The plot was a 5. The writing style was, I would give like 4 stars for the writing style. It was still really, really good. And overall, I love this book and I would recommend it to any other fellow young adult or adult that is looking for a cute little rom-com romance that makes you kind of kick your feet and all that. So the next book I started was Paintings from the Cave by Gary Paulsen. Wonderfully written, by far. Such beautiful writing, and the way that Gary writes is just so meaningful and touching. The way he describes things, I would say that he's an excellent writer. But this book overall, I would probably rate it a 3 stars just because it is 3 novellas, so there's 3 different like short stories in the whole book. And the first one was really good, really, really heart-wrenching, like so sad. I cried towards the ending because it's just, these books are not for everybody. I would not suggest you read this if you have a hard time hearing about just difficulties that happen in our world or to certain people, and it's just, it's a lot. So many content warnings. I would really research it before you read it, just because it is heavy, and I personally had to read it while reading another book to kind of pull me out of the sadness of it. But I think it is really eye-opening, and the whole point of this book is to bring awareness to these issues in our society and to bring awareness to different sorts of pain that people experience. So I think that is beautiful, and I think it is necessary that authors do that, that they show us things that maybe we don't see on our own or through our own eyes, but yet we can feel it through writing, which I feel like reading about it is such a different impact than watching it on the news or watching a movie about it. At least for me personally, the reading is just, you're so immersed in it that you really feel it. So definitely a heavy book. The last story in it I wasn't very fond of personally. It was kind of slow and I wasn't really feeling it. It was probably no, I'm not gonna say that because I don't want to spoil anything. The second one was still interesting. It was honestly confused me for a little bit, but then it made sense. And then the first one really grabbed your attention. But I feel like, I don't know, the first one was the best written one, then it kind of got not as good. Anyways, that's why it's only a 3 stars, because loved the awareness, loved the emotions, and loved that it brought light to so many things that we don't see. But yeah, also some of the stories were just kind of hard to get through, both emotionally and just because they were kind of boring. Anyways, so the book I started reading while reading that one because I needed a break from it is The Wedding by Nicholas Sparks. I took off the sleeve because it goes on my shelf up here and I have like blue books right there, so it's prettier without the sleeve. But anyways, I did this book as an audio and as a like physical. Also the pages on this, I just love how they're like kind of like distressed on the sides, if that makes sense. But anyways, yeah, so this was probably the last, oh, not the last one, Gentle and Lowly was the last one. This was the 4th one that I read. So I wanted to read you a summary of the book that I wrote down, and it says, Wilson, which is the main character in this book, is married to Jane, which, if you guys have ever watched or read The Notebook by Nicholas Sparks, The Wedding is a book 2 to this series. I didn't read The Notebook, but I did watch it, so I didn't really feel like reading it because I had seen the movie so many times, if that makes sense. And I don't really think that you have to read The Notebook in order to understand this. I would at least get some kind of concept of what The Notebook is about before going into The Wedding. Anyways, so Wilson's married to Jane, which is Allie and Noah's daughter from The Notebook, which, if you're familiar with The Notebook, you know that that's like the 2 main characters of the whole entire Notebook movie, and yeah. Anyways, and they're like super romantic and like, oh my gosh. So her example of a marriage was like, or a love story was just 2 people who are super duper in love, and Noah did so much for Allie, and that's like her expectation, if that makes sense. So anyways, after 30 years of marriage, Wilson has to admit that the romance is gone. Desperate to win his wife's heart, he has to make her fall in love again. Wilson had gotten so busy with work that he worries he'll lose Jane. So when his daughter says she's getting married and wedding talk in the air, Wilson seeks Noah's advice and gets to work to pursue Jane all over again. So the whole concept is really that Wilson is like, oh yeah, I need to win my wife back because I feel like I'm losing her because I didn't put enough effort in our marriage. And it's just this really, really heart meaningful thing. And the ending, I love the ending, guys, so much. I know I rated this book a 3.5, but I'm honestly been thinking about upping the rating to like a 4.5 because I really loved it that much. The only thing that I think wouldn't make it a 5 stars is I don't think I would have loved it as much if I didn't do the audiobook, because I loved being able to listen to it. Is there like a really good audiobook? You know, some books are really good audiobooks and some are not good as audiobooks. I wanted to share some quotes that don't spoil for you, but that were just my favorite quotes from the wedding. Also, yeah, I'm changing it to a 4 stars. Anyways, it says, "But love, I've come to understand, is more than 3 words mumbled before bedtime. Love is sustained by action, a pattern of devotion in the things we do for each other every day." That's so beautiful. Anyways, and the other quote is, "In all the years we spent together, I never once regretted the fact that I had chosen her and that she had chosen me as well." Anyways, I just really loved it. It was so sweet. There was only like, I don't even know. It was just so beautifully written and so romantic and so sweet. And Nicholas Spark did an excellent job at like truly explaining. I never thought I could have loved a romance story from a romance about people who have been married for 30 years, you know, that it was just so well done. And the whole, there is, I would say like a fade to black scene on the spice level. I was doing audiobook, so I just skipped it by like 15 seconds and it was over and I don't even know what happened. So that's not a concern for me, but just thought I'd let you know. And that's like more than halfway through the book, I think. And hey, they're married, so, you know. Anyways, just tap it 15 seconds or flip a page and you're good to go. So yeah, that's that. But I did want to let you guys know that in case anybody, yeah, as you know, I give that rating. But love the ending, love the romance, beautifully written, just so well done, no bad language, fade to black, closed door, just such a beautiful love story, and I really loved it. And I loved that it just shows what love is over time and that loving somebody takes effort. And I thought that was wonderful. So, okay, the last book that I am reviewing is Gentle and Lowly. And guys, I got Pen on the cover and I'm so sad. It's okay though, because you don't see it on my shelf, you know? And the actual cover of the book is beautiful. Anyways, so let me tell you about this book. And I also have a really like a written out rating of this on Goodreads, so if you want to read that. But I give this book a 5 stars, and I don't ever rate like books like this like out of star ratings, because they're just like, typically I'm like, they're just self-help, they're just Christian books, like I'm just learning from them, why would I rate them? But I could not rate this book because it was so good, guys. Dane Ortlund, whatever the author's name is, did such a beautiful job of explaining and dissecting Jesus Christ, God's heart for us sinners and sufferers here on earth. Like, he just in like the last 3 chapters changed my whole definition of what it means that like Jesus died on the cross for me. Like, we know, if you're Christian and you're watching this, if you're not, I really strongly recommend that you stay here and hear this out, because it changed. I've been Christian. I was born into like this world of Christianity and church and all that, but yeah, it is still a decision that I have to make every day to follow Jesus. And I just think it's so beautiful because it changed my perspective of, we hear all the time like, yeah, Jesus died on the cross for you. He was whipped. He carried his cross, you know, wore a thorn crown, like nailed to the cross, all these things. But I never really stopped to consider the emotional aspect of what Jesus did for me. The fact that Jesus not only went on that cross and endured such great physical pain, he endured so much emotional and spiritual and mental ruin and pain and wrath. All of the stuff that we deserved, all of our sin and our punishment that we deserved, Jesus stood there in our place and said, God, and this is not saying that God is wrathful and all this stuff, because God's not. God's very heart was for us to be saved and to come into his grace and his kindness, because God's heart yearns for us. But what I'm saying here is Jesus stood there and said, I'm going to take all of the punishment that they deserve, the whole world, not just the world, but people for centuries, for until this world fades away. I am taking everyone's sin on me. All of the weight, all of the sadness, all of the shame, everything that they will feel, I am going to feel it in this exact moment. I think that I would lose my sanity if I was there and I felt the weight of everybody's sin to an emotional level. That would be so much. He, even before he died on the cross, he was weeping to God, feeling so much sadness. If there's any way that I don't have to do this and that we can save them, please do it. But if not, I'm going to do it. He felt so much sadness just at the thought of being far from God's heart, that yet he went the farthest away from God's heart by taking all of our sin and all of our shame. I just find it to be so beautiful that Jesus did that for us. What did I do to deserve this love? And the answer to that is nothing. I have done nothing to deserve the grace and the goodness and the mercy that God has shown me. But the thing to note here is that your salvation and your forgiveness from Jesus is not based on your works. If we think that it is based on our works, do we even truly acknowledge God's heart for us and what he did for us to say that we alone could bring our own salvation? That totally gets rid of the whole idea of what Jesus did for us. So basically, I've learned all of this and more from this book, and that is why I recommend it, because I've always known that Jesus loves us and that God loves us and that, what Jesus did for us was a beautiful thing. But to hear it and see it from the biblical scriptures and really just expanding on this whole concept in such a deeper way was not only beautiful, but it was heart-changing to know and mind-changing to know, because without Jesus, I would be, one, probably a really awful person. Two, I would be super depressed and anxious all the time. And this isn't to say that because I know Jesus, I don't face hardships, but because I know Jesus, I have peace and joy in the most hardest things of my entire life. So read this book, and if you want to know Jesus, just go to him. Just say, Jesus, change my life. Come into my heart. Make me new. Make me alive again. And just surrender all of your ways to him. And by doing so, don't turn around and go back to everything that you're running away from. Instead, run straight towards him and let go of everything that you're carrying. Get a Bible, start reading it, find a local church, go there. Message me, comment down below. My Instagram is linked. You can go and DM me saying, hey, I want to get to know Jesus, and I will gladly, more than gladly help you. And I've never talked about this, but I can't not talk about this because of how much Jesus has saved me and changed me. So anyways, that's Gentle and Lowly, and that is the stirring it has caused within me. And I really recommend that you read this, whether you're a Christian or you're not, because it is amazing. So on to the last thing of this video, which is my talk about what I read in the Bible in February. So this month I read Hebrews. So here's my notes, a little messy on the first page, but I just really, really loved Hebrews so much. And I love the fact that it really just talks about, once again, like if you read Gentle and Lowly, he goes into depth of parts of Hebrews too, which I really, really liked. I learned a lot, and I recommend that you never ever read something without something that can help you understand it, because this has a lot of stuff that can be very much so taken out of context. But I just love the fact that it talks about Jesus as our high priest and the ultimate sacrifice that he made for us. And it just goes beyond. I even have like notes from Gentle and Lowly in here that I took because it really expanded on a lot of stuff. And it was just really, really good. And I like that also in Gentle and Lowly, he goes into like the Greek words and the Hebrew words in this, and I thought that was great. So here's chapter 7. And also it talks about like the new covenant with Jesus is so different than like what you read in the Old Testament. So really, really great. Here's some notes that I took from a Bible Project video because I was like, what the heck is that? But anyways, I really loved it. Probably my favorite chapter in Hebrews is chapter 11 when it's talking about living by faith. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about this in the end, but also I'm just going to show you my notes. Sorry about that. I think you totally just saw my retainer. Running the race with endurance. And that's it. I did have to scribble that out, but that's okay. So let's talk about chapter 11. So I want to talk about chapter 11 because chapter 11 really changed me, and just God did a lot when I was reading it. I probably spent more time in chapter 11 this month than any other chapter. As you can tell, I got a lot of notes from it, and I am excited to expand on it. So let's get into it. I'm going to read you some of my notes. But chapter 11 really just defines faith and what it means to live by faith. And it is also one of the most taken out of context by Christians. So I want to expand on that. A big thing that people say from chapter 11 is having blind faith, which is not something we should do, because we're not having blind faith by having a faith-filled life for Jesus. And it talks about like a lot of testimonies of people in the Old Testament who lived by faith, and I circled literally every time it says by faith, because they did all these things by faith. Rather, they did it, and then they saw this hard thing, and they went through what God was saying for them to do by faith. They got their reward, saw greatness, and some of them didn't see the reward until they got to heaven. So it's just really eye-opening. But the main thing I wanted to share here says, where is it? Oh, I want to read you the notes. It says, "This is not an endorsement of blind faith, especially since it comes after lengthy messages full of evidence and logic. Instead, the writer presents the idea of faith as a confident look to the future, based on reliance on God's promises and character." So the whole idea of blind faith comes from people just simply thinking that we live from that, like, oh, I have no idea what God you're wanting me to do, so I'm just gonna have faith. Like, no, because that is like going to, my mom used this example once, that's like going to a seamstress for a dress and being like, I heard you make dresses, so I'm gonna have faith, just make me one, And you have no idea, you've never seen how the dresses look after this lady makes them. You just know that her sign says seamstress, and you're like, okay, make me a dress, That is not what it's like with God. When you trust in God and you have faith and you rely, there's a verse in Proverbs 3:5-6. It says, trust in the Lord with all your heart and do not rely on your own understandings. In all your ways know him, and he will make your path straight. This is the same, or also applicable when it comes to our faith. Like, I'm not going to trust in what I, like, my own worldly knowledge. Instead, I'm going to rely on you because I know you. My faith comes from a confident hope of me knowing your character. And I know you by your word. I know you by testimony. I know you by my own life and what I've seen you do. And it comes from just relying on him, not by just saying, I'm just going to have faith. But I'm having faith because you saved me from my anxiety. I'm having faith because you have provided for me. I'm go walking by faith because fill in the blank. Why you're having faith. And if you're like, well, Brooke, I have no reason I have no reason for faith. I'm just kind of here. Well, I would say that a reason for your faith can be found in his word. It doesn't have to be a specific time in your life yet if you're new to this, but it can be, and you can maybe even try to look back at your life. There's gotta be a place in your life where God has been faithful or that he's done something for you, even if you didn't know in that moment that it was him who was doing it. But even if you look at his word, you can see time and time again the character of God and his heart for his people, that you will have no choice but to say, I'm going to have faith in you because I see that you are a God who keeps his promises. I see that you are a God who is love. I see that you are a God who cares for me, who will never abandon me, who will never forsake me. I see that you are made strong in my weaknesses. And it's just calling out his character. Get the scripture in your heart to the point where you can just live by faith because you know him. It's not blind, but it is faith because of my confident hope in who he is. So that is what I got from the Bible in February. And I know that I've definitely changed kind of the idea of booktube because I see a lot of booktubers, and even if some of them are Christian, they don't talk about God. And I do not want to be a Christian who makes content and doesn't make space for Jesus, because truthfully, that would be selfish of me to know how good he is and not share it with you. So I'm sharing Jesus with you, and that is simply because he has totally changed my life and I want to share him, but also because I want to share things that I love. I love Jesus, I love books, and this is my way of pushing them together in content for you guys, where I can talk about all these books and be honest about why I don't like spice in books, instead of being like, oh, I just don't really like reading about that stuff. Like, no, I don't like reading about that stuff because it grieves the Holy Spirit, so I will pass through it. And this is not also to say that I have been perfect forever, that I've always avoided those things, you know, but this is me showing you that we as people are always changing. So in this space, in this channel, in these comment sections, everything we say is with love and it is with kindness. And I say all of this to pretty much say, expect videos on books that I'm reading and book wrap-ups, expect videos on the Bible and what I'm reading, and expect them to sometimes cross over because it's gonna happen. And the example I hope to bring is that you understand that when Jesus is part of every aspect of your life, it naturally melts into every area. My goodness, my dog. Anyways, I hope you guys have a great day. I love you, and I will see you next time.